Good evening and welcome to the Langley Adams Library. Thanks for coming. Tonight we have DickLehr, who's written several books. Black Mass, which is actually going to become a movie.
Happening as we speak.
Excellent. I think you might have a few tales to tell.
Yeah. Have you read about that at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Underboss, Whitey, The Fence, and maybe some others. And so he's here to talk to us about his experience in writing and also now on the movie set. And I also just wanted to mention he's a professor at Boston University and used to be a reporter for the Boston Globe, and I think won a Pulitzer Prize.
Finalist. I didn't
Yeah.
know. Being Argentina.
So thank you very much for coming here tonight. And I just wanted to mention two of the programs that are coming up in the next couple weeks. Next Monday, it will actually be at Nichols Village. We'll be having the Boston Saxophone Quartet, and that will be at 6:30 at Nichols Village on Monday. And the following Monday, we will have here at 6 o'clock again, Jeremy Detremont for a new and different lighthouse talk, lighthouses and the people who kept them. So hopefully you can make those also. And thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Okay. What I thought I'd do is talk a little bit about the books, mainly the Black Mass and Whitey, which is the new book that Jerry O'Neill and I wrote. It's in some ways you could call it a sequel to Black Mass. Talk a little bit about sort of the story behind these books, how we got into it, and things like that. And then I'd like to leave plenty of time for questions, especially with the movie being made and Johnny Depp. It's been kind of I've been going to the set on a regular basis, and I've been going to the set for the movie at different locations, and I have to say that's kind of a surreal experience. So I'm still processing it. I was just there on Friday until like 2 in the morning on Revere Beach, which they turned into Miami Beach, and so it's kind of interesting. But I did want to, we got the first book, Black Mass, which is the one being adapted into a movie. That's a book that focuses on Whitey Bulger's corrupt alliance with the Boston FBI office. We call those the Black Mass years, from basically the mid-'70s until the early '90s, a couple of decades. That's how long it was that Bulger struck up this informant relationship with the Boston FBI's organized crime squad. And his handler was an agent by the name of John Conley, who was also grew up in South Boston in the same housing project as the Bulger family, a bit younger, so that he therefore looked up at the Bulger brothers. We got into that story as reporters at the Boston Globe during the 1980s, when the Globe published in 1988 the first story, the first tip of the iceberg, so to speak, the first layer of the onion on the onion peel, disclosing that Whitey Bulger and the Boston FBI indeed had this relationship that was suspect. But we didn't know then in 1988, and it took years for sort of the toxic truth to tumble out, how deep and dark and corrupt it was. Corruption in the FBI office when it came to relationships with Whitey Bulger and some other key organized crime figures who were informants for them, was not just an isolated incident involving a single case and a single investigation. It had become a way of life in Boston. It was a culture of corruption. And in 1988, this first story sort of started to dig into that. And as I say, it took years, it took hearings, it took a new team of prosecutors to really dig and have this stuff start to spill out into the public forum where it belongs. So we wrote Black Mass. It came out around 2000. It's already been 14 years now. And again, the focus of that was on this, what we call the unholy alliance, and all the, and our interest, or at least I can only really speak for myself, as a journalist, during the 80s and into the 90s, and in writing Black Mass, I have to say, my interest as a journalist was the FBI. What went wrong there? This was the nation's top law enforcement agency that had gone bad. Whitey Bulger just happened, yeah, he's fascinating, he was interesting for sure. But to me, the primary focus as a journalist was the public institution, the FBI, that had been so compromised. Whitey Bulger, even though he was an informant, he was always coming out on top. He'd kind of turned the tables. He was calling the shots. And that's a remarkable accomplishment from his perspective. But again, as a journalist interested in kind of the public and public good and all that, it was the institution of the FBI and the characters and the agents and how could things go horribly wrong that we were examining in the story of Black Mass. Because Whitey Bulger was a gangster, and you expect gangsters to break the law. He was doing what he does. The FBI is not, in theory, supposed to be part of a Bulger gang. They're not supposed to be gangsters. So that was the challenge, that was the intrigue, that was the appeal as a journalist when we wrote Black Mass. And when it came out in 2000, Whitey Bulger had already been, he was 5 years on the lam. He was a fugitive from justice starting in January of 1995. And then, and so, Black Mass, as I said, it was a focus on 2 decades of this relationship. Then comes, June of 2011. It's already been 3 years, it's hard to believe, when Whitey was captured with Catherine Gregg in Santa Monica, California. I'll be candid, it's like, when that happened, of course I was riveted by it. I was suddenly, had been teaching at BU now for a number of years and had left the Globe in 2003, and was doing a fair amount of commentary for media, radio and television about the capture and putting, the story in its context and stuff. It didn't really cross my mind that there was another book, Jerry O'Neill and I had written Black Mass. Again, the focus of that seemed, other books had come out since. There are gangster tell-all books, gangster memoirs. Other journalists had written books. Howard Carr's done some books. And it was just like good. They caught him. It's a good day for justice. So it wasn't really our idea, and it was my agent and a publisher who called and said to Jerry and I, said, "You guys, you got to finish it off now. You got to finish the story." And I go, "Well, Black Mass, I think, and we've updated it over the years. It tells the story we wanted to tell." And he goes, "No, I think you need to write Whitey Bulger's story." And at first I go, "Well, I don't want to write a book that readers will look at it or read it and say, hey, this is just Black Mass remixed, like you do in a music song or something." We didn't want to do a remix. We didn't. So we chewed on it. We thought about it, and what came into focus is that, a biography of Whitey Bulger was certainly warranted by 2011, and what came into focus for us was the sense that and it was hard to see it at first because I think we're living in his time, and he's part of our time. But what we argue in the subtitle, "The Life of America's Most Notorious Mob Boss," one of the themes or the thesis of the biography is that in the last century, he is America's most notorious crime boss. He goes to the front of the line, and if you think of some of the household names that he just like movies have been made of or books, Dillinger, Al Capone, Lucky Luciano. The Mafia, more recently John Gotti. These are big names in the Hall of Shame of the criminal underworld, but I think now, upon reflection and doing the books, that Whitey goes to the front of the line, and there are several reasons for that. One is, he can match, unfortunately, body counts with any of the gangsters that you could name in terms of how many people he's killed. So he's as ruthless and brutal and homicidal as anybody in the criminal underworld. Dillinger, Capone, you name it, okay? Another thing in his favor, in a sense, in terms of his place in history, is that a lot of those other guys died young or relatively young. Dillinger was only 31 years old when he was shot outside of a movie theater by an FBI agent. Al Capone died of a stroke at the age of 48. All right, Luciano and Gotti made it to their early 60s. Whitey, he's going to turn 86 in September.
Wow.
Okay, he's had a long, long shelf life. He's still around in a profession that longevity is not really part of the game. Okay? So that's a distinguishing feature about Whitey Bulger. But it's not the longevity, and it's not the body count, or even the millions of dollars he piled up, just like any other crime boss that you could think of. All those things, put him in the game, put him in the final, so to speak. But he accomplished something that none of these other guys did when you step back and think about it in a sort of historical way. He brought the FBI in Boston to its knees, okay? None of these other gangsters did that. You can't say Whitey, you can't talk about him, you can't write about him without in the same breath talking about the FBI. And we're not talking about a local police agency, we're not talking about the Boston Police Department, we're talking about the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He was at the center, Whitey is at the worst informant scandal in the FBI's history. Okay? So I think that's what puts him at the front of the line. And then the other thing that made it seem like, okay, this is a project that will be moving the story forward, moving hopefully the public understanding of this piece of history. The other piece of it was that in Black Mass, as I say, the focus of that was the 70s and 80s. When Whitey became an informant in 1974, he was already in his 50s. He'd lived half a life. But that half a life was kind of skirted over in Black Mass and in any other book that's been written about him or the Bulgers. So we had as a challenge before us the idea of filling in that big gap. The first half of his life had gone largely unexamined, and that's what a biography is all about. So we set out to do the work and the reporting, to take Whitey Bulger as a historical figure and tell his life story, his biography. Having done so much work since the late 80s on this story, during 2011, 2012, this book came out a year ago, it proved truly fascinating. Not only did we learn a lot about Whitey Bulger that hadn't been known before, and with the help of friends, so to speak, because there was genealogical research, for example, that was way over my head. And so we got the help of the New England Genealogical Society, and there some folks helped us trace the Bulger family back to Ireland with it. And that's and that's what was kind of, it was both great to nail down some of these facts, but also illuminating in the sense that Bill Bulger, for example, has written his memoir, has written a memoir. And from his talks and from his memoir, you would think the Bulger family basically came directly from Ireland. But it turns out they spent like several decades in Newfoundland. And Jerry O'Neill is Irish, I'm not. So he appreciates the meaning of this far more than I did, discovering and realizing that the root of the Bulger family, they were Newfies, not directly from Ireland. So you just tell that story. Another Bulger myth, so to speak, is their father, James Bulger Sr., who's, and some of this is very tragic and poignant, his father, when he was a fisherman in Newfoundland, he died in a fishing accident before James Sr. was even born. So he was born without a father. And when he was 5 or 6 years old, his mother, Billy and Whitey's grandmother, came to Boston. And so he was in Newfoundland with relatives for a number of years. the senior Bulger, when he did come to Boston to rejoin his family, when he was a teenager, he lost an arm, and you know, as a young adult, and therefore he was disabled and was always in many ways marginalized in terms of both World War II and his employment opportunities. But when you read, and so this is the other things that become interesting when you dig. In Bill Bulger's memoir, the version of his father as a teenager losing his arm is characterized this way. His father, Bill Bulger, said, was a teenager, 15, 16, I don't remember the exact age, working in the Charlestown Navy Yard, okay, trying to, you know, earn money for his family to help put food on the table. It's a very touching story. And at the Charlestown Navy Yard, he had an accident where he fell between two rail cars. His arm was crushed and he had to be amputated. All right? That's been the story in Bulger family lore. When we, again, in examining and trying to figure out the first half of Whitey's life, we actually came across records that revealed and included a newspaper story, interestingly enough, that the senior Bulger lost his arm in Providence, Rhode Island as a runaway. He had run away from home, and he was jumping a rail car when he had a tragic accident where his arm was crushed and had to be amputated. It's tragic either way, but a very different message, very different tone. And in fact, fast forward, you know, the son, Whitey, like the father, was a runaway at the same age, you know. So you start to go into some more different and in some ways interesting parallels, perhaps. So that's the kind of thing that happens when you undertake a biographical project like that. The other thing, beyond Whitey, that made, I think, the project so fascinating was that because of his longevity, when you're studying and trying to figure out, you know, Whitey's life, you know, he was born in 1929, so the 30s, and, you know, he did this and then he did that and this and that. You realize that when you're studying his life, it opened doors into so many other worlds in the 20th century. For example, when you're researching and writing about Whitey Bulger, you're researching and writing about the Depression years, both in Boston and in the nation, because he was born in 1929, weeks before the market crashed. So you have to, you're in that world, and that becomes interesting as far as context for Whitey's youth. A little bit older, when and this was, you know, really this was revelatory. In the 1950s, 1956, when he was in his early 20s, he got busted. He was arrested for bank robbery, armed robbery, in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and in Indiana. And he was convicted, and this was until now the one and only time he'd gotten serious jail time. He was sentenced to federal prison for 20 years. He got out much earlier than that, but in 1956 he was off for 20 years. And one of the things that happened that feel like you've in some ways gotten real lucky and won a lottery, so to speak, is because his prison file, like Whitey won the lottery, his prison file, which had always been off limits, had not been public, when by the time of 2011, 2012, when we were doing this book, it had become a public record. And that became a mother lode, a gift for us, I mean, anyone doing research on his life. And it was the kind of thing he needed, because one of the reasons, I talked a few minutes ago about how the first half of his life being examined, and we kind of glossed over it in Black Mass to get to the Black Mass years, is because there's very little to find out. You couldn't get much. And the Bulgers certainly, Bill Bulger stopped talking to us a long time ago, given the nature of our work. So over the years, we've always filed what's known as Freedom of Information Act requests to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, seeking Whitey Bulger's prison file for the more than 10 years he was in prison. And we'd always get back a form letter that gave you some facts, date of entry into the system, date he was transferred. He started out in Atlanta, then he was sent to Alcatraz. They gave you that date. Then they gave you the date he was transferred to Leavenworth, and then he gave you the date he was transferred to Lewisburg, and then the date of his release. Okay, that's it. Everything else was declared not public, private information under some federal statute. And I'd always thought that things become public once someone, a former inmate, dies. Okay, so obviously Whitey, when he was captured and we're starting the biography, he's in custody. He's not dead. And I almost didn't do this, but it's so many years of training as a journalist that even though you've been told no 3 times, you still ask the question. Okay, that's what I teach my students at BU. Even though I had a million other things to do, I said, oh God, I'll just, who knows? And so I submitted an FOI request, and I forgot about it, and started talking to people in South Boston, doing other things to try to research Whitey's early life. And then suddenly an archivist from the San Francisco area in the Federal Bureau of Prisons called me up and said, well, we got the file, how would you like it? A CD? A CD? And so I was like in shock, and I had to what do you mean, it's public? And he said, yeah. I said, I thought he had to die for it to be public. He said, well, there's the other clause is that when an inmate turns 78 or 79. So it had actually been public, but no one had been interested in it for a couple of years. So somehow there's a certain age, I don't remember exact age, where that also triggers something like this to go onto the public record. And then the other remarkable thing was, obviously, when I first started asking for this in 1988, it was before the digital age, before the internet. And so now he's saying, I can copy this to a CD and overnight it to you. And I'm going, yes, please. Because if it had happened, that saved me from getting on a plane, going out to this repository out in the Bay Area with a bag full of quarters or whatever it is, and it's a 700-page file, and standing there and doing woo. But instead it showed up within a couple of days, and that was as I say, a rich reservoir of biographical information about Whitey, his family, and what emerged from that is another world, several worlds, one of which was politics during his young adulthood and beyond. Never realized that during his prison years, Father Robert Dryning was listed as his parole advisor once he was released on parole. And Father Dryning then, who was not yet the congressman and the international human rights worker that he became known as, at that time he had just become dean of the BC Law School, which is where Bill Bulger was going to law school. So, connections. And there were letters between Whitey, not letters, there weren't Dryning's letters, but letters from Whitey to Dryning, asking for his help, doing what he can to help him get out of there and improve his lot while behind bars. So that was fascinating. So you're in the world of politics. And even bigger than that, and this part was known, we knew and had been mentioned that the Congressman McCormick, who was also from South Boston, John McCormick, was a family friend and had written a letter here or there or something on Whitey's behalf while he was in prison. We never knew how much until we got the prison file. And also the McCormick papers are at BU where I am. And what emerged was, on a fairly regular basis, 2 things emerged. First, became a theme is that Bill Bulger and the Bulger family became what we describe in the book as Whitey's advocate-in-chief. He was the one contacting the prison about his brother. He was the one contacting McCormick's office, looking for exceptions to the rule, looking for this and that. He should get an early parole review, that kind of thing, advocating, lobbying for his brother. Again, I'm not going to judge that. It is what it is. At that time, Whitey hadn't killed anybody. He was in prison for armed robbery. He was only 26. I think Bill Bulger, but it wasn't the father, it wasn't anyone else in the family, it was Bill. And so that's all pretty interesting. He was doing what a loving, loyal family member would do, is trying to improve his brother's situation. And I'm sure with the hope that he could be recovered. He could come out and be redeemed. you know, obviously looking back, no way.
It's separate from
Hindsight's
them though,
always
right? I came to
20/20.
Boston in '77, and at the height of, you know, Bill Bulger's power.
Actually, the 80s was, 87, by 87 was the height, but you're right, he's on the rise.
Maybe the rise, but during that period. And I always remember reading how he kept him at arm's length, but during
Publicly
that
he would,
period-
well, yeah,
Yeah,
and
publicly.
the media was complicit in that, is that, in other words, Bill would never discuss his brother. It didn't mean that they weren't having Sunday dinner together. But as a public thing, and the media, to a fault, was, you know, overly careful about, let's not smear Bill Bulger with his brother's reputation and activities and stuff like that. And I think Bill Bulger understood that game and actually exploited it. Because they were very close during all these years. There was never a time from then until now that they've always been in sync and loyal to one another. And the prison file during this period then, in the 50s and into the 60s, the letters in there really document that connection, that loyalty, that bondage that becomes a lifelong theme. That's what we're looking for, themes that carry through over the decades. And so Bill as advocate-in-chief, working McCormick, you know, it's documented and it's very rich and it's very fascinating. So that's another thing. The other world that we enter and is Alcatraz. You know, the Rock, America's most notorious prison. Whitey did he did a couple of years there. So you can't study Whitey without getting into Alcatraz and into that world, and that's cool and interesting and bizarre. Of course, the FBI. You're writing his biography. You got to get back into the FBI because Whitey Bulger was a key figure in their deeply flawed and ultimately criminal, what they call the top echelon informant program that they launched in the 60s. And it was under those auspices that Whitey was recruited. The idea, the theory being to recruit top echelon, high-ranking criminal underworld figures in their number one priority of going after the Italian mafia. But as now history shows us, this deal went so horribly off track and horribly wrong when it came to Whitey Bulger. But you have to examine that program, its goals, its aspirations, its theory, but in practice, it's utter failure. At least in
Was
this
there
instance.
ever any connection or to do with Whitey and his group and the Boston Italian Mafia?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I
They had a strange
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I
Yeah,
just
no, that's
thought
okay. I
you-
mean, they had a strange love-hate relationship with Gennaro and Giulio
Okay.
from the North
All right.
End,
Yeah.
the Giulio crime family. Jerry and Giulio hated Whitey, but Whitey was teamed up with Stevie Flemmi.
Okay,
That was
that's
his,
right. Okay.
and Flemmi was welcome in the North End. They offered Whitey, the so-called Winter Hill Gang, then before it was really the Bulger Gang, was known to do contract work because they were just fearless and brutal and known as killers. So they did some work for Giulio, and they took some borrowed money. They did had some financial dealings with the mafia, but they were never in business together, and they were ultimately rivals. And with the FBI's help, Bulger obviously succeeded in taking down the Angelos and clearing the playing field so that the city and the region became Whitey's world. So you got to do the FBI in the top echelon, and then the other thing that was interesting, and it's we wrote a lot of new material on that filled up at least a chapter and more, is the Whitey and LSD, the LSD project. That again, it was known that while in prison, Whitey had been part of an LSD project and stuff, but it was just surface, no real details and stuff. But in this prison file and using the prison file, I mean, we were able to document all these. His consent form was in there. We were actually all this information about exactly how many times he participated and took LSD. I think we counted 50-something times over a course of a year and a half. Figured out so that we could reconstruct dramatically, for readers, what it was like on the he was part of the Tuesday group. That there were 8 guys in the Tuesday group, 8 guys in the Thursday group. that when he would go down into the basement of the prison hospital where they had set up this experiment, and he would drop acid and trip and be there for the next day. All these, and they used that information with some other records. And so we were able to bring that alive in a way that, and tell that story, I think fairly definitively in a way that's never been done before. And learning along the way, what I had never realized or never known is that there were two sides to the LSD program. Most people have some familiarity, as I did, with that this was a CIA involved, the CIA was involved in this project, and that's kind of what's come out with Whitey a little bit. And that's true, and Whitey didn't know that at the time. And so you have to go back in time and start at the beginning. The LSD project that was going on in the Atlanta Penitentiary, as well as some other prisons, as well as at some colleges, was very open and public experiment. LSD was a relatively new drug in the mid-50s. And scientists, again, I ended up reading all these scientific research papers, had seized upon LSD because as a possible treatment and cure for schizophrenia. In the 50s, then, it's still a major concern now, but schizophrenia was a major public health concern. And the thinking was, by these doctors, was that this new drug, this hallucinogenic drug, made people, when you took it, instantly insane, instantly schizophrenic. And so, what great guinea pigs do we have now? They're schizophrenic, and they could then test other drugs on them to see if it helped treat the symptoms of schizophrenia. That was the parameters, that was the situation. So they went in the Atlanta Penitentiary, asked for inmate volunteers to be part of this project that was for the greater good, looking for cures and treatments for schizophrenia. And Whitey raised his hand because any volunteer participating, you got $3 in your commissary account and 3 days off your sentence for every time you dropped acid. What they didn't tell the inmates, and what we'll never know, I mean, so you can find newspapers, feature stories, inmates part of, scientific, medical progress or whatever, mental health stuff. So it was fun to, interesting around all that stuff and realize, oh, that's what was going on. That was the public side. The other dark side of the coin was the CIA. In the 50s, this was, Cold War, height of the Cold War. And again, this is all stuff that's emerged, records, and documented. The CIA, our government, was freaking out that the Russians were using this new drug, LSD, as part of chemical warfare development. They were worried that the Russians were going to, the Soviets would put LSD in our drinking water supplies. It was almost like Sputnik. They felt behind in the chemical war race. So they approached these doctors and they piggybacked this public schizophrenia study and say, we need to get into this. We need to see if LSD can be used as a truth serum or some kind of chemical weapon in the Cold War. So they started secretly funneling money to these to the doctors doing the Whitey Bulger thing in the Atlanta Penitentiary, and they started also saying, while they're tripping, try this drug on them. Try this drug. They would test them with this. They had their own agenda, and it's not clear to this day because obviously this was all very top secret. No one knew about it until this was in the late 50s, early 60s. No one knew about the CIA fooling around with LSD in people's lives until the late 70s and 80s, and there were congressional hearings. And by then, no surprise, the CIA had destroyed nearly all the records of the experiments. So to this day, there's been a couple of really good books written about the CIA's chemical, and LSD stuff. But there isn't really a thorough understanding of what kind of drugs they were playing and putting in people. So, you get on Whitey Bulger's back, to do a biography, and you end up riding through the 20th century. And that's what really became, the biography, which is in many ways the last of a trilogy of books. The first book that's not here is a book he wrote called The Underboss, which is about the Angelos. and the bugging and the takedown of the Ajulos, and that moves to black mass, and then culminates with the biography of Whitey Bulger. All right. So I think hopefully that gives you a flavor and a taste and an overview of these works. And what I'd like to do now is open it up to questions, since I'm talking too long as it is. Yes, ma'am.
Two questions. One is, did you say that when Whitey was first arrested and put in Alcatraz and Leavenworth and every place else, that he hadn't been a murderer as far as everybody knows then, but after the LSD trials, when he came home, he started to prove himself to be even
and
a nicer guy?
He's not known, and no one believes, any experts or anyone we've talked to, at age 26, I mean, he'd gone up the criminal ladder. As a kid, he was just a wild kid, always getting a lot of arrests. That's the other thing, the theme that emerges. If I can make the point in a kind of backward way, obviously, through the Black Mass years, with the FBI on his back, he really was like an untouchable. He could get away with anything. But that, in many ways, when you researched his life, that really was the culmination of what he's always felt. Because he was arrested as a juvenile, and we couldn't figure out always why, but he had like 10 to 12 arrests. We got a hold of his juvenile record. It was in the prison file. And he never did a day in juvie. He somehow always found a way to get sent home, okay? He would either appeal it. It was as if there was a helping hand, but we couldn't find it specifically. Some Paul, I don't know. But because you looked at other kids, his similar situation, they were paying a price. So he, age 11, 12, 14, he got this sense of entitlement. He had no consequences for what he did. And the really spooky thing was realizing, and this was in the same month that he had gotten arrested, busted for breaking and entering and stealing something, and he got his case. I don't know. It's not on the tip of my fingers now. He got it. He went home. He either got it overturned or he appealed it and got it thrown out or something. This very same week, another young man, with virtually the same crime, was found guilty and sent to the state juvenile institution. He was from Chelsea. His name was Albert DeSalvo. So Whitey went home. Albert DeSalvo went to juvie. So it's just like, whoa. That's the kind of connections you can just when you're documenting the chronologies, you realize, geez, how come it's fate or whatever. But yeah, he wasn't known to be a killer. He came out. He didn't kill right away. There's a lot of contributing factors. Maybe LSD. We did a fair amount of research in that in terms of the damage. Can LSD damage you? And I have to, again, I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor and stuff, but the people I've talked to, mental health or physicians, they said pure LSD, which is what they were using in the prison, can mess you up short term, like some, because you're hallucinating stuff. But there is no known long-term damage. The damage that they said, it's the stuff that showed up on the streets in the 60s during the 60s. When it wasn't pure, it was LSD mixed with a whole bunch of other things. That's when people have suffered from that in some long-term ways. But Whitey wasn't part of that. So but it's not to say that it didn't have an impact. But there's a whole bunch of, I think, other factors come into play that turned him into someone who seemed very much to enjoy killing. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, and I was kind of thinking when you talked about the LSD experiments and stuff, and again, the two sides of it, where people, there's also the experiments, everybody thinks, oh, it's prison and all the rest of it. There was also the academic experiments that went along with it, and you have even as recently as, say, 2010 when Steve Jobs died, referencing doing LSD as being a breakthrough type thing. And I wonder if Whitey he was such a brilliant criminal mind that he was enlightened by these experiences, and right after that, everything became clear to him. Like, that's the terminology you hear in a lot of these cases.
Like the Steve Jobs.
And he just started manipulating people to no end right after that.
Yeah, I mean, he learned a lot of, maybe a lot of important lessons while in
prison. Hoffman, the guy who found it in his lab, went to the grave advocating it.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. but it is true that prison enabled him, helped him in a lot of ways in terms of developing a style and discipline that's served him very well when, you know, in his rise in the underworld. Whether it was even reading history, because he's a self-taught, self-educated guy, and he did study generals and strategy, military strategy, but he also realized, and again, this is another theme. He realized a couple other key things. One is that he was so brash and loud, in his late teens and early 20s, and with that he had this hubris. He never expected to get caught, and he was. And how he got caught, again, this is all new material that came out of his prison records and other material we uncovered, was that one of the other bank robbers who had been caught ratted him out. Okay? And when they arrested him in 1956, and he was actually back in Boston, he was a fugitive, he shouldn't have come back, but he was set up, and he was arrested. He learned that he had been ratted out. There's a chapter called 1956, The Informant, in this book, because the new records that we uncovered revealed that in order to improve his lot, he ratted out the two remaining fugitives.
Mm-hmm.
So he learned an important lesson about informing, which was again astonishing and revelatory to us. No one realized that in 1956, largely because he got a 20-year prison sentence. He pled guilty, and beneath it was he had cooperated, he had informed, but that wasn't part of the public record. And no one really suspected anything because a 20-year sentence is pretty stiff. Until you, again, go back in time and put yourself, bank robbery was a big deal. In 20 years, he faced 60-something years because he had multiple bank robberies here, and they were armed robberies. In Indiana, it was like Butch Cassidy. Again, the brash white, he went in there and put his guns up and like that. He was all these great newspaper stories.
What was he doing in Indiana?
I know.
Because you go Massachusetts.
You get friends, and someone was out there, let's go rob banks,
Yeah.
That was the 50s. The bank robbery was the ultimate. He'd gone from hijacking from trucks, and that didn't give him enough of a hit.
How far did he go?
He had to become a gun-toting bank robber.
How far did he go in school? Eighth, seventh, eighth?
Elementary, just out of elementary. Yeah.
But there's a genius there someplace.
Yeah. No, he's a very smart guy.
Really criminal.
But in the context of the times, you realize that for maybe there's 4 bank robberies, a 20-year sentence was actually a pretty good deal, and it was a result of his informing. There was another bank robber who had only been found guilty of one of the jobs. He got 20 years too. So Whitey, so that was again astonishing to realize he was an informant then. And I think that was a major lesson when he came out in this whole thing with the FBI. There's a line in the movie that again he said there's informing and there's informing. So to him it was all business and strategy.
I mean, bank robbing, you say what you think about it, the times were much more innocent back then. You figure, you think even going back into the 70s, I mean, banks were just wide open places, and there was no really high-tech electronic surveillance.
Do you know that even in 1950, this was fun to research and stuff, because of the rash and of bank robbery and the uptick, because it was also the first, banks were usually all downtown in Boston, but the suburbs were growing and branches were opening up. And there, you know how you go, how the tellers have windows and wire? None of that. It was just an open counter, like being at the library.
That's right. It was.
And so these guys, that's why he got busted for. They weren't doing Boston banks. They were going out in the burbs and jumping up on the counter.
They, you put it in context. The Brinks robbery, which happened in the 50s.
Yes.
Right. Those guys.
56. Yeah.
Those guys got arrested after the statute of limitations ran out, I think, or within a week or something like that.
It was very close.
And they got life.
Yeah, they got under the. No, so it's a whole different era, and then but it's all part of realizing that, we probably should have looked closer, at his 20 years. It was actually a deal, and then of course, he did get out early, so he didn't do 20 years. Yes, ma'am.
I'm intrigued by the difference between Whitey and his brother, Billy, and how they ended up going in opposite directions, but really staying together as well.
They share a lot of the same traits. They do, in terms of their knack for power. Again, they prospered in very different venues, obviously.
Yes.
Bill Bulger doesn't kill people. But in terms of having a knack for the exercise of power, very same traits. Having a reputation as being ruthless, very same in terms of part of the exercise of power. And again, the book documents, and especially after Whitey was a fugitive, and the third brother, Jackie, again, the interlocking connections when Whitey's a fugitive and on the FBI's most wanted list. The Bulger family is still looking out for Whitey out there. Jackie Bulger ended up going to prison because of the shenanigans he was pulling, meeting Whitey and being the go-between between him. But Bill, again, is way too smart and way too careful. He made one phone call. He had one phone call with Whitey the first month he was a fugitive. And there's no known direct contact after that. But Jackie it's like that mafia, you know what's it, Godfather? You know, the one brother?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? That was that's Jackie.
He lost his pension too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well,
He did. He went to prison.
well, that and hiding the guns in his house.
He got money for Whitey. He met with Whitey. He brought him a mustache. He brought him, trying to help him with his disguises. And then he would go, he was brought before the federal grand jury. Have you had any contact with your brother? No. You know that he's a gangster? That's what people say, but I don't know. And have you helped him? No. And then they just nailed him. See, all this stuff. So,
What do you think, do you have an opinion of his mental status now?
Whitey?
Yeah,
He's very sharp. So,
you
Yeah.
believe that?
yeah, he is. And that's what everyone was. I was in court the day. And again, in June 2011, they brought him back from California. And that was the one time Bill Bulger was in court. We write about that. It was interesting how they locked in on each other. And,
Like I know you're there.
yeah, and they smiled at each other. And again, we kind of riff on that a little bit because it was a knowing look,
Right.
a loving look. But it was almost like that song is like, but they also like, it may be over, but we did it our way. It was just, and because he was 83, 84 then, I mean, my God. He did it his way, he did it my way, whatever.
When they get him in California, where did he get all them guns?
He had some of them, but
I mean, there was a enormous
oh yeah, he had an arsenal, there's a wall.
Easy to get
Um,
guns.
He
They
couldn't have
tracked a
taken
lot-
them from Boston.
No, he just had a few from Boston. He bought them in where you can buy them. And he bought them from people. He bought them in Arizona, went to gun stores. They ended up tracing some of those receipts, some of the guns back to the gun stores where he was able to buy them with, I guess, minimal, ID or anything. He just went in and bought them as Charlie Gasker. I mean, he had ideas. He just got Charlie Gasker. Any
You
movie
must-
questions?
Well, I have one quick question.
Sure.
You must not have been a very popular person to a lot of dangerous people while you were unearthing what was going on with the Flummies and the FBI and Billy Bulger. What was
Yeah,
it
well,
about?
luckily I wasn't in it alone. I mean, I was part of the spotlight team at the Globe with Jerry O'Neill as the editor. The Herald, there's David Boario. I mean, there were journalists who, going back to the late 80s, who have come in and out of the stories. Obviously, I worked on many, many other stories. You come in and out
No,
of
but
something.
the Globe is,
The Globe definitely is,
Yeah.
they push this.
right.
And especially the FBI. I mean, it's, gangsters, it was only the late 80s that we were a little nervous about our own our own safety. But it was, the FBI, as John Connolly, I think he would throw a punch at me if he saw him, Now the Bulgers, Conleys, the FBI, I've heard things, I've seen things, when Bill Bulger visits, Whitey, when he was in Plymouth being held during the trial, all that stuff's recorded, and once in a while our names come up, and it gets pretty ugly.
They were very comfortable.
Yeah.
That's when they share a lot of the same traits. Moments like that.
Reading Black Mass and a few other things, this stuff, I'm just always amazed at how, because it seemed like the agenda of getting rid of the mafia at the time, which was, an aging, was geriatric at the time almost, was just such a focus of the FBI around the country.
Yes.
That they became enablers for this group that really was the same group of guys.
Yeah, it all centers around Hoover. You know, he came to the mafia late. He
Yeah.
denied that there existed
Yeah.
an organized crime world, you know, empire like that. And Robert Kennedy and the Kennedys were going at it in the 60s. So when Hoover could not deny it anymore, the pendulum swung way over here.
Yeah.
Everything was all about getting the mafia at whatever cost. And so they developed this informant program, which if you read it on, you know, again, if you read it on paper,
Yeah.
it makes it seems like, oh, that makes sense. That could, you know, and all the checks and balances. But again, in Boston, when you insert into that hierarchy, you know, a John Conley, who is beholden to both Bulgers, as you know, he used to, and it's in Black Mass. It blew me away once when, you know, talking to John Conley, and he was talking. This was when we could talk, when he would talk, interview. Again, this is many years ago now, but he talked about meeting Whitey Bulge, and he said it felt like meeting Ted Williams. And I thought that said everything.
Yeah.
That just said, Al. I said, you're saying that, and don't you understand that that seems off? You know, that you're, that the feeling of meeting Whitey as a kid was like meeting Ted Williams? That's like so odd. He's like, and he's saying it genuinely. He's like, where do you start?
Yeah, he's like the head FBI agent in Boston.
Yeah, you know, so
What's wrong with this
so I don't think
picture?
the top echelon informant program on paper, as a program, could account for things like that.
Winter Hill, Somerville was no bargain either,
No,
you know.
I know that's predates.
People tell me you can be friendly with those people, but don't ever think you're their friend because you're not their friend.
That's right. And see, Stevie Fleming is the bridge and the link, really, because Whitey was away in prison during those years,
Yeah.
the height of Winter Hill, and Stevie was a protected informant as part of the Winter Hill game by an agent called Rico. So this is why you know, Whitey and Conley is actually the second tier, the second generation of this way of life here in Boston. It began with Winter Hill and Fleming and Paul Rico, and the handoff was to Whitey and Fleming and the Bulger gang, and Conley and Morrison as those guys retired and moved on. No, that's why it's just. Well, I think we should. One more question. I think.
Is it over? Is there any residual left
Well,
in the general Greater Boston area?
Yeah,
Is that a
I think-
fair question?
Yeah, I think it's troubling. And again, I teach now. I don't really. But if I were at the Boston Globe now, or what I think the Globe should be doing, is that guys like Kevin Weeks, John Materano, the hitman, you know, Stevie Fleming's not out, but Pat Nee, Weeks and Materano obviously became government witnesses. Without them, and I'm not saying that, you know, and it's a very controversial thing, they got sweetheart deals in terms of their sentence. But without their testimony, a lot of it I believe is truthful because it's corroborated by other things. You know, a lot of things wouldn't have been, bodies wouldn't have been uncovered, murders wouldn't have been solved, Whitey wouldn't be convicted to this day, okay? But they're out in the street. If I were at the Boston Globe, I would be wanting to know, especially like Pat Nee's name came up so much at Whitey's trial, but he dug up the bodies, he was the guy in the car when they killed Howard. Why hasn't he been arrested? Weeks and Materano, I think regular. I was just talking to a state trooper who was on the movie set doing duty, detail, and he was telling me how about Weeks and Nee and Materano. I guess on a regular basis, there's a restaurant in Southie that's theirs now, where they hang out and do things. Are they protected? That's the question I would want. I think the Globe should be answering. Have we, even though they've got Whitey, these guys, they're on the street. Are they back in the game? Are they back in business? And if they are, why aren't they being busted? So this is, is history repeating itself on a different scale? These are troubling
One
things.
more unfair
When you ask
question.
for,
One more unfair.
I don't know. I would want to know the
Unfair question.
answers.
The change in the ownership of the Globe, will that contribute to the change of what the Globe goes after? You don't have to answer that.
I don't know enough, but I don't think there
Well, I
would
don't
be any
know enough either,
hesitation.
but
I just don't think they've thought of it, or they don't have the resources. everyone's still caught up in, you know, the Whitey story
Right.
being done, but I think there's a problem. I suspect that the government, which should be applauded for taking down Whitey finally, had to use some of these guys. And I'm not saying they're corrupt in any way, but they don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
Because
Makes them look
it
better.
would, it would be get more complicated again.
Mm.
But that's where the, you know, either another law enforcement agency or the press can come in and say, at least ask these questions. How come these guys are on the street? Have they asserted themselves? Are they taking over the criminal underworld? Yes.
The millions of dollars that are being paid to the families
Yeah.
of people, I didn't understand that. Do they have to have a conviction before they can file a case for the monies?
There's a couple. I'm not sure. The couple. You know, there's one of the. You know, Whitey's conviction.
Does the government pay all those people?
Oh, it's our money. It's taxpayers.
And it's millions.
But a lot of that has been. There's been civil lawsuits all these years. Families have sued wrongful death against the government.
And
There's
that
been
will go on and on. And
No,
on.
that's a lot of them are done, and these families, it was covered in the press, but not in a big way. A lot of these families have won $1 million judgments, and we'll see that money because it's taxpayer money. But there's also the new kind of money that's what, you know, if they ever find Whitey's money, his money has to go to victims.
Will go to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for your good
Oh,
questions.
okay.